All right, y'all, welcome to the 2026 Bay Mini Grant webinar and Q&A. I'm going to ask you to add your name and organization to the chat if you'll do that now. My name's Jessica. I am the Community Projects Manager at the Tampa Bay Estuary Program. We've got Carly Jones here as well, who's going to be helping me today. Maybe some other staff, I'm not sure. But that's who we are for now. I'm going to ask you to stay on mute and off camera until we get to questions. If you leave your camera on, you're going to be recorded forever on our YouTube, just a heads up. You're welcome to do that if you want to. You are welcome to put questions in the chat anytime, and then we'll answer them at the end. This is being recorded, so you can refer back to the webinar anytime. I'm also going to add the slides onto the website for you as well. So, continue adding your names and your entity, your organization to the chat. Also, I just want to do sort of like a temperature check. So in the chat, do a plus plus if you're definitely applying this year. You just want to make sure you get any tips and tricks that we have here today. So do a plus plus if you are applying this year. If you're just gathering info and you're not sure if you're going to apply, but you're considering it, do like a slash, slash, backslash, forward slash, whatever. If you have questions and you don't think you're going to apply this year, but you want to kind of gather information and learn more, put a minus minus. Cool. Got a little bit of everybody in here. I like that. Okay, cool. Well, let's get started. Um, All right. So today I'm hoping to spend about 30 to 40 minutes talking to you and then the rest of the time for questions. We're going to go over the program in general. We're going to talk about, it says 2025, a typo right off the bat. I love that. The 2026 grant, eligibility, how to apply, evaluation criteria, timeline, and then we'll get to your questions. So all the information that I'm going to reference today is going to be available on our website or is already available on our website. Carly, if you will put the Bay Mini Grant website in the chat just so people can refer there if they want to, that would be great. All the fancy license plates that you see in Florida, I don't know if you know, but they're all tied back to some sort of organization or purpose. So this is our fancy license plate in Florida. When someone buys one of these license plates, the funds fund the Bay Mini Grant program. And you'll see in the evaluation criteria that you can actually get extra points for helping us advertise the license plate to increase sales and therefore increase funding for Bay Mini Grants in the future. So what is the point of Bay Mini Grants? So because Floridians support the program by buying that license plate, we want to give these funds back to the community in a way that also supports our mission of protecting and restoring Tampa Bay. Bay Mini Grant funding is used to engage the many different communities of Tampa Bay in hands-on environmental restoration or conservation, or to educate locals about environmental issues and solutions and their role in a healthy and thriving estuary ecosystem. These are the basics of the grant. Awards are up to $5,000. Funds are reimbursed after they're spent on project expenses. And projects run for 1 calendar year, so from January to December of 2026. And we're currently accepting applications for that 2026 grant. Just about any type of formally recognized organization is eligible to apply for a Bay Mini Grant. Because this program is meant to give directly back to the community, governments that apply do need to show an even stronger community engagement and aspect of their projects. So that's why we've got that little asterisk there. Individuals cannot apply, but if you're just a person with a great idea and a desire to get your project funded, go approach a nonprofit or a small business in the watershed and see if they're interested in being your administrative sponsor. I know many of our organizations would be really happy to support the work and be sort of like your fiscal sponsor, especially if there's someone like you willing to push the project forward. Projects must be in the Tampa Bay watershed. You can see it by the watershed boundary with that red outline there on the map. From Lakewood Ranch up to Wesley Chapel, Seminole to Bradley Junction, all of these areas eventually drain into Tampa Bay, and so the entire watershed is eligible for Bay Mini grant funding. And Carly, if you want to throw the watershed boundary link into the chat so people can sort of explore that on their own too. And I just wanted to note this guy's face. If your project can get someone this excited about squid, um, I'm gonna make sure that you get some funding. So just wanted to point out this really great picture. So I wanted to give you all the basics first, but now let's sort of dig down into the details a little bit, starting with those environmental restoration, conservation, and education goals that I mentioned are sort of the driving purpose of Bay Mini grants. The Comprehensive Conservation and Management Plan is a big title, and I'm going to call it a CCMP instead of Comprehensive Conservation and Management Plan for Tampa Bay. The CCMP is basically a guide to protecting and restoring Tampa Bay. This plan is continually updated to reflect the latest science, the newest techniques, the changing needs of our watershed, and any Bay Mini grant project must align with one of the goals in the CCMP. Carly, if you want to put the CCMP link in the chat, that would be great. And I'm also going to give you a quick demonstration of how to use the CCMP. So when you go to the plan on our website, you can explore what's there to get inspiration for your project. Or if you already have an idea, you can just go and find the CCMP goal that aligns with your project idea. You can see the 3 program priorities listed here, the clean water, healthy sediment, thriving habitat, and abundant wildlife, informed, engaged, and responsible community. These are also listed in the application materials, and it's being highlighted here so you can see that. In your application, when you're referencing the CCMP goal that you're going to address with your project, you can just copy and paste it right into your scope of work. I'll show you how to do that in just a few minutes. These are some examples of past projects. Your project definitely does not have to fall in line with these. These are just examples for you. In fact, I think that using your own expertise, your own background, or sort of your organization's niche is, or even like your business's unique customer base, it's a really great way to come up with a cool new project concept. Here are some more examples. What you may not notice from this list is that many of these projects include both a hands-on restoration component and an education component. Our review team really loves to see both of these in any kind of project. So let's actually talk about what makes a really great Bay Mini grant project. The most important part of a Bay Mini grant is the environmental benefit. So going back to those CCMP goals, think about how your project could improve or provide some benefit to the water quality, the habitat, the wildlife, etc. that's in the watershed. Some sort of direct and active community involvement is important. That could mean planting trees for a restoration project, involving the local neighborhood association in planning of the project, or having the broader community select a mural design for some sort of environmental art in their neighborhood. Bring in your organizational or individual expertise or your niche to add that sort of creativity to the project to really make it your own. Creating a plan in advance will help everyone involved with the project know their role, will help achieve project goals, and it will help us understand and help y'all plan for how the project will run over the course of the year. Collaborate with partners. Make sure you get letters of support from partners if you include them in the application. And just to add a little bit of extra, you can address one of this year's funding priorities, though that is not required. And if you do all of these things, you're going to have a really great Bay Mini project. Sure, does it require a little bit of luck if you have a like a planting project and a hurricane comes? Like, absolutely, luck is certainly a part of this, but I think if you have all of these things pulled together well, you're still going to have a really great project anyway. So probably my favorite part of my job is coming up with Bay Mini Grant project ideas. I find this like super fun. So here's a list of ideas that I and some other staff have come up with to sort of inspire your next Bay Mini Grant project. You should feel free to literally rip these ideas right off the page or sort of take the concept and the idea and fit it to your goals or your needs as an organization. I'm happy to talk with you one-on-one about your project ideas, brainstorm with you, figure out what kind of goals or metrics might work for your project. Always happy to do that because I actually really like it. Now we're going to get more into the specifics of submitting a strong application. So all the materials here again are on the website. The biggest thing I can tell you right now is just read all the materials before you get started. It's not a ton of information, but knowing everything before you jump into it will really help you lay things out in a logical way for the reviewers. This is my recommendation. This is how I would put together a Bay Mini Grant application if I were doing it. Read the materials, draft your responses to the application document, draft your scope of work and your budget, get all your materials together, review everything and edit as needed, finalize everything, and then make sure to submit on time by September 10th at 5 p.m. These weird little blanks are some additional recommendations. So if you read all the materials, you have this great idea, but you're just not sure if it's a good fit for Bay Mini Grants, give me a call or schedule a meeting and we can talk about it. Or if you already have your project ideas put together, but you're like, I don't know if these are the right metrics, I don't know if this is the right sort of timeline or deliverables, I don't know if y'all even fund this kind of thing, just reach out and I can hopefully help answer some of those questions for you. And then after you've put everything together, send me your draft application. If you send me your draft application by August 4th this year, I will make sure to get it back to you with feedback and enough time to apply by the deadline. You're welcome to send it after that. I just can't make any guarantees because things get pretty busy as we get closer to the deadline. Um, it's pretty rare that grant managers offer to review a draft application. I'm able to do that because I don't actually choose the projects. It's our review team that does that. So it's my job to help you come up with strong applications and help you have a really good project. So don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions. All right, read application materials. That's straightforward. Um, as I said, this is not required. You don't have to meet with me. I'm not going to make you talk to me. But I do recommend it. However, I am going out of town this Friday for a month, and I'm going to be away and only working part-time until I get back in St. Pete in July. So today you can stay after and we can chat a little bit. You can give me a call if you want to today. The rest of my week is pretty busy leading up to me leaving, but if you do want to get together, send me an email and let's schedule some time that first or second week of July. That should give you enough time to ask any questions and sort of get your ducks in a row before the application is due too. Make your own copy of each of these documents, and then you edit your own copy. You're not going to be able to edit it directly in our website or in our Google. The application document is just used to compile your answers. So you're going to make your own copy, add all of your answers, and then when it comes time to apply, you're going to copy the answers from the application form and paste them into the application portal. So that's just a hopefully helpful way for you to draft your responses. There are tips throughout that application document. There are some limitations on characters or not character, word limits and page limits. So just make sure you're reading those tips and tricks in teal text as well. The scope of work is really the bulk of your entire application. The scope of work is the who, what, when, where, why, and how. This document is how you're going to communicate to the review team what your project is all about, how you're going to accomplish it, why they should choose to fund your project. And these are my recommendations. Use the template. Sometimes people get a little creative, but this isn't quite the time for it. Definitely use the template. Choose the goals that align with the CCMP. I'm going to show you more what I mean in a moment. Choose your success metrics. They should be specific and talk about what success for your project looks like. Describe what deliverables you'll provide and show us how you've met your goals. Write out your timeline of how the 12 months of the project are going to go. And then provide a short and compelling story about the inspiration of your project. It's really important to have that sort of storytelling component because this is such a community-driven program. So hook the reviewers with the narrative at the end. The review team, I'm not sure if you know, is composed of volunteers that are on the Community Advisory Committee. They aren't getting paid to review this, so we do want to keep things very concise, straightforward, and easy for them to understand. So they're not having to, go back and forth and figure out what you're trying to communicate. So be concise, plain language is best. The scope of work should not be more than 4 pages. And I'm going to open an example here for you. And I will need someone to come off mute and tell me if you can see the scope of work.
Again, Jessica.
Yeah, great. Okay. So this, I'm actually going to go with the example first. So this is an example of a theoretical project. You've got your title here, you've got your project goals, metrics, and deliverables here. And it looks like in this example, there are 4 goals. There are 4 success metrics that align with those goals. And then the deliverables proving those success metrics are laid out as well. So let's just go through them one by one. The goal is successfully carry out the Bay Mini Grant project. Every application should include this as one of your goals. You can see the CCMP goal is tied here. It's just typed in there. You can link it or whatever you want to do there. The success metrics are submit 4 reports on time. It's actually been changed to 3, so I'll update that. Provide any copies of products from the grant, so think videos or brochures or anything like that. Provide videos and photos of project progress, and advertise the Bay Mini Grant Program or Tarpon tag at least 3 times. That's that license plate that I told you about that you can see behind me right here. Then how do you prove that you've met those metrics, that you've done the thing that you said you were going to do? That's where the deliverables come in. So you have your progress reports, and then you have your screenshots, and your videos, and your links and all that. That deliverable shows that you've met the metric and you've achieved your goal. So for this next example, install 40 oyster bags. We've got thriving habitats and abundant wildlife. Number 1 is chosen there. And then success is installing a minimum of 30 oyster bags. That might be confusing because the numbers are different, but keep in mind, this is the goal. We want to do 40 bags, but if we do at least 30, then that will be success for our project. And I think that's a totally reasonable way to show that. Then how do you show that you met those metrics, that you achieved that goal? You've got a copy of permit exemption or for permit exemption for oyster installation, photos and maps of where oyster bags are installed, so that will be the sort of physical proof of achieving that goal. For this one, engaging 100 volunteers for 5 oyster bag installation events. The CCMP goal is informed, engaged, and responsible community, number 2. That'll be listed on there. And success looks like a minimum of 60 volunteers and at least 3 volunteer events. So again, this is the goal. This is what the minimum will look like for success. So anywhere between 60 to 100 volunteers is great. Between 3 and 5 events is great. You're gonna have sign-in sheets from the volunteer events and then photos and videos from the volunteer events as well as the deliverables. And last, they want to install some signs too that talk about the role of oysters in estuary ecology. Again, that's the informed, engaged, and responsible community, number two. Success will look like two educational signs installed around XYZ Bayou, and it says what's going to be on those signs as well. So, science-backed info about oysters, blah, blah, blah. The deliverable is are digital copies of the installed signs so that we can review them before you print them and just make sure they're fact checked, make sure everything looks right. So always pad time to send it to us for review. Photos of installation progress and of two installed signs, and then map of sign installations or just locations provided. So that's some really specific examples of what goals, metrics, and deliverables look like. They've also gotten your timeline here. What's going to happen in January 2026? These are the things we're going to do. This is about how much money we think we're going to spend. Then in February, this is what we're going to do. This is how much money we think we're going to spend. Some months, they're not doing anything, and that's okay. So just lay out each month, each season, however it makes sense to you, what you're going to do, how much money you think you're going to spend. These are all estimates, and we totally understand that. But to provide this information shows that you've thought about it, that you have an idea of how you'll execute this project, and it really shows that you are setting yourself up for success, for actually achieving the goals that you've laid out. And then last but not least, project narrative. Tell us what inspired you. Tell us about the CCMP goal and why you chose that one. Tell us how you'll do it and who you'll work with, what role any partners play in this project. And talk about partners here, the hands-on aspect of it, the educational aspect of it. And this is really just your opportunity to sort of draw in the reviewers to hook them into the story. So storytelling is really important and helpful here. So that is a scope of work example. And this template, again, you'll make a copy of this to edit it as your own. I've got a lot more info in here, different ways to think about your goals, your metrics, your deliverables. We have a ton of examples in here, like 2 or 3 pages of examples. So hopefully you find one that is similar to what you're looking for. And if you don't, you call me and I can help you with that too. So lots of different examples, project timeline, and then narrative. And remember, keep your scope of work to 4 pages. Okay. That's enough scope of work talk for the moment. Let's go back to our presentation. So, evaluation criteria, this is how your application is going to be scored. There are 14 specific criteria when you look at the application information, and they're broken out into these 2 main sections. Together, these criteria are trying to get at that special combination we went over earlier of environmental benefit, community engagement, creativity, collaboration, and planning. I can't overstress how important it is to communicate, as I say that, communicate clearly and concisely. I've seen some potentially really great projects go unfunded because the application just did not lay things out well. And that, I really don't like that. I would love to see the really good projects succeed, but we've got to sort of demonstrate what you're trying to do. Community engagement is a foundational piece of the Bay Mini Grant Project program. Tell us how you're going to engage the community to create the future stewards of our estuary. Provide these letters of support. I'll say that it's a big red flag when you list partners or you list people that you're going to collaborate with, but don't provide a letter of support from them. So make sure you're getting the materials together that you need to. Show us that you've made a great plan, describe your plan. And as a bonus, you may have noticed that there are 5 points for any applicant that has never received a Bay Mini Grant Award, or there are 5 points for past Bay Mini Grant awardees who are using their experience as Bay Mini Grant awardees to bring another organization or community into the fold, kind of. So if you've gotten some funds from the mini grant before, how are you going to sort of share that information, spread the love, build the stewardship pipeline with other organizations or other communities? I recommend scoring your own application against the criteria before you submit, so you have an idea of where the gaps are, what you need to improve upon. Maybe even have someone who's not involved with the project or with your organization score the app with fresh eyes so that they don't have, the experience that you have, the bias that you have with the application. Make sure to read all the criteria. I absolutely did not list them all here. There's several of them. Um, yep, okay. Funding priorities change each year. Sometimes they are based on like a specific issue. This year they're based on sort of audience targets. Your project does not have to address one of these funding priorities, but if it does, you could receive a boost of like up to 5 points for your application. So this year, engaging rural communities, homeowner, condo owner, or neighborhood associations, communities whose primary language is not English, those could all get you an extra 5 points on your application. And promoting environmental stewardship through art is another option, and building the sort of expert pipeline of early career professionals in environmental work in the watershed could also get you additional 5 points. Um, if you have questions about this, let me know. What I don't want you to do is sort of squish your project idea to meet one of these funding priorities in a way that makes it weaker. If it makes it stronger, if it makes your application better, if it changes your application, your project idea a little bit in a way that is really authentic and like meaningful, that's great. But don't try to squish your project into one of these priorities just for the 5 points. Next is the budget spreadsheet. It's the second most important part of your application. So you want to use the template again, you want to provide enough detail, you want to complete each cell in each row that you start, abide by the restrictions, and double check your math. Double check your math. Double check your math. Just one more time, double check your math. So this example is of a native plant. They want to do some sort of native planting. You can see the name of the plant, what size it is, how much each one costs, how many they want to buy. The total cost is broken down into Bay Mini Grant funds and matching funds, which there aren't any, so the match source says none. Each cell is completed, even if there's nothing to put there, even if it's a 0 or none. There's adequate detail. They've got the species name here. This is a good, straightforward example. This is a good one. This example, in this project, they are buying equipment. So in this one, there's also adequate detail. They say right here, can y'all see my mouse when I'm moving around?
Yes.
Okay, cool. They say right here that they're providing quotes in the supporting documents. Hopefully they've done that. And they did that because it's a big ticket item. They want to tell us why they chose this item over one that's cheaper or more expensive or whatever. Just provide some justification in the scope of work if you're buying something that's expensive. Um, they are using match funding for some of it down here. They've described where that's coming from. The hardware store is donating it. It's valued at $300, whatever this safety equipment is that they provided details about. So this is another good example. In this example, these are the exact same, which might not make sense initially, but if you look at the totals, they're the same amount here, total cost, Bay Mini Grant, matching funds, total cost, Bay Mini Grant, matching funds. Uh, in the top example, it's broken out into one row, or it's in one row, and in the bottom example, it's broken out into 3 different rows. These are both good examples. You just need to decide if you're a lumper or a splitter and how it makes sense to show, to demonstrate what kind of funding you're requesting and what you're using it for. Both of these are good. Neither is necessarily better. but one of them might make more sense for whatever you're doing. So I just want to show you these two options. You cannot use Bay Mini Grant funds for clothing, lobbying, non-native flora or fauna, anything that's purchased before the grant starts. So even if it's directly related to the project, do not buy anything before we give you the notice to proceed. And any items or services that aren't included in the scope of work. You can't just decide to add something. You can amend your scope of work down the road if you need to, but that's a conversation that we would have to have before you do that. One moment. So, budget restrictions. Your budget cannot include more than 10% of it for mileage, cannot include more than 25% of it for food. And for food, these restrictions, $6 for breakfast, 11 for lunch, 19 for dinner, those are actually state regulations, so we don't have any control over that. But make sure if you're putting food in your budget, it adheres to these restrictions. For salary, this is only the second year that we've done this, but we do not have a firm restriction, excuse me, on salary in your budget. I do recommend that you keep salary less than 25% of your budget because I just don't think that the reviewers see $5,000 for salary as a competitive Bay Mini Grant project because it's supposed to be about community engagement. So while you can request 100% of your budget for salary, I don't recommend it. I recommend keeping it under 25%. Send your draft application. We already talked about that by August 4th if you want to. This is optional. And let's talk about those other documents. So I told you those letters of support are really important, especially if you list a partner or collaborator or something, or even a donor, someone who's going to provide some sort of match to your project. If it's a physical project, provide maps. If it's some sort of like research project, maybe you want to provide works cited or some sort of backup information. I recommend keeping these other documents to 5 pages or less. It's not great to submit, 20 or 30 pages of backup documents that the reviewers have to look through all of that. So try to keep your backup documents to a minimum, but do provide the required information to review your project. Then, review it, edit it, make sure it makes sense. Have someone else look at it with fresh eyes. Like, make sure it's a great application before you submit it. Because once you submit it, you cannot edit your application. You are going to submit everything in this online application form. It has to be provided by 5 p.m. on September 10th. I don't think the platform isn't glitchy, but sometimes if you leave it open for too long, it'll time out. So don't wait until 4 p.m. on September 10th to submit this. Make sure you're doing it at least the day before. Give yourself plenty of time for any technical issues that you might run into. There is a 30 megabyte file upload limit. So when you are including these documents, make sure they stay under 30 megabytes. Everyone will have a scope of work. Everyone will have a budget worksheet. Both of those are required. Everything else is not required, but is something that you might choose to provide based on your project. Letters of support, maps, all that good stuff. And just make sure any supporting documents don't exceed 5 pages. Okay, this is your timeline. September 10th, 5 p.m., applications are due. In October, those volunteers on the Community Advisory Committee are going to be reviewing your applications. In November, our board approves or votes on the recommendations that they've made that we've as staff have made to them. And then we notify you about whether or not you've gotten the funding. In November and December, those who are going to move forward with awards will work together to nail down a final scope of work, all that good stuff. And then contracts are issued and executed in December, hopefully. And you can go ahead and get started as soon as that contract is finished. January 1, I would love all projects to start by January 1, so you have plenty of time to get all that good work done. Um, February and August, progress reports are due, and then projects wrap up by December 31st. You, of course, can finish early if you've gotten everything done. And then final invoices and reports, any leftover deliverables, anything remaining is due by January 31st, 2027. So that is a lot of information. I've been talking at you for a really long time. This is just a review of everything. Who can apply? What is the program? When does the work take place? When do I apply? Where are projects funded? Why do we do this? And how do I get a grant? Follow these instructions, submit a strong application by the deadline, and I think you're going to be pretty successful. So with that, I'm going to ask you again the same question that I kind of asked earlier. So if you are ready to go forth and conquer, you've got the information you need, you've got a plan in place, and you're definitely ready for your application, go ahead and put a plus plus in the chat. If you need to get some ducks in a row in the next month or so before the application period, but you think you're going to get there and you are probably likely going to apply, do that / again. And then last but not least, if you're leaning toward waiting to apply another year, need some time to get some things together, totally fine. You're looking at next year for applying or a future year, just put a minus minus. Cool. Got a little bit of everybody in there too. Okay. So now we're gonna take questions. If you would like to, Carly, actually, if you don't mind, are there any questions in the chat that we should start with?
Yeah, there's two. One is about that salary percentage. Is that percentage of the total requested from TBEP or the total of line items, including anything matched? For example, if we list a matched salary, would that count towards the percent?
No, I think having salary as a match is a great idea. It shows that you're investing in that. The percentages that I listed for food, mileage, and salary are just for the estuary program for the Bay Mini Grant funding. So of the $5,000 maximum.
And then how many grants are awarded in total?
It's roughly 80 to $90,000 each year, so depends on how much people request. It is anywhere between 15 to 25 projects in a given year. But that just depends on how things shake out.
That's all. I think I answered all the other ones.
Okay, cool. All right, I'm gonna exit screen sharing and y'all can show me your lovely faces and yeah, ask any additional questions that you might have.
I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
Also, hi, Jessica. Thank you. It's a
Hello.
great presentation.
Yeah.
So we have a project that we started with a previous grant for plants, and I want this to be kind of an add-on sidebar project to have education materials. Would that be okay? Like the grand scope of the plan has started, or in my timeline, or for my application specifically, should I make it very clear that mine is like mutually exclusive with a different timeline?
I think it's fine for a mini grant. It totally is fine for a mini grant to be a piece of a larger project. And I think that's actually something that reviewers like to see is they're like, oh, you already did this work. Now you're on the next phase and you're going to do this next or whatever. I think showing how the mini grant project fits into that larger scheme is helpful. But I think that that's totally fine and good.
Okay, so for my timeline, we started back in October, and that's when I could start. And then within that year,
I see.
it'd be a year and a half.
In the application, just do the calendar year, so January to
Okay,
December 2026, and then in the scope of work, like narrative section, talk about the stuff that you've already done going back to October of this year, I guess it'll be.
cool. Thank you.
Mhm. Should there be one invoice at the very end, or can there be two invoices? You, Abby, you can submit up to 4 invoices in the calendar year. If you want to do one like each quarter, for example, that's fine. If you want to wait and do everything at the end, that's also totally fine. Um, yeah, but maximum of 4 invoices in the year. Other questions? I'm just scanning through the chat too.
I have a question.
Sure.
How do you have any examples of kind of how people have successfully advertised the Tarpon tag? I think there's obviously ways you could sort of add it on, but sort of like successfully integrating it into a project, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think don't stress about it. It should be really easy. So like if you are already posting a social media update about your project and you've got progress updates, pictures, that kind of thing, just add a little line at the bottom that says this is funded by the Tarpon Tag, by the Tampa Bay Estuary License Plate, buy yours today to support this kind of work. Something as simple as that. You could add a blurb on your website. You can include it in your newsletter. It should be really simple, however you want to do it. Some people, if it's like an art project, they'll include the tarpon or something in their design to sort of highlight it. But whatever you think is easiest and works is great.
Thank you.
Yep.
I have a question.
Mhm.
If we have like 2 organizations, so I'm from USF, but we do work with the Tampa Housing Authority. Could for the same project, could we both submit, or is it one for the
There's
group?
only one applicant, so
Okay.
whoever's going to be like the lead on it, sorry, whoever's going to be the lead organization, should be the applicant, but then have the
Okay.
other be a partner and provide a letter of support.
Okay.
And to my mind, it doesn't matter which of those is which.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. I don't.
Can I ask another?
Yeah, go for it, please.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So there's only ever one person as like the lead applicant. Can that person submit 2 separate projects for 2 different organizations?
Yeah, so there is a limit on 2 applications per entity, per organization. So I think you're submitting for Roser Park Neighborhood Association. Roser Park could submit 2. You as an individual, if you're listed as the project manager, there's no limit to whatever. However, if you want to be a project manager on 5 different mini grants and you want to do that yourself, go for
Maybe
it.
2, not 5.
But there currently is a stipulation that even though an entity can submit 2 applications, only one of them can be funded in a given year. I'm considering changing that. I don't, if there's 2 great projects, like I would rather fund a great project than, I don't know, that's just me. But that's something that I would have to talk about with the community advisory committee who sort of informs all of this. But no, you can totally be listed as project manager on 2. Just keep in mind if you're submitting both applications under the same organization, only one of those will be funded.
Cool. Thanks.
Other questions?
I have a question. What are some examples of engaging education? Are we talking school kids? Are we talking Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts? What's an example?
Yeah, all of those things. I think, if what I would like to see, and again, I'm just one voice on the review team, but I think what the reviewers like to see is using your engagement with an audience that you already have, or that you have a really strong plan for engaging. For instance, there's been multiple sort of train the trainer type of programs that have been funded with teachers, so like teaching teachers how to include more estuary science in their curriculum. Unfortunately, not many teachers have like signed up to take it, and I'm not sure if that's because there's some sort of barrier there, or if that's because the outreach is just not targeted enough. I'm just not sure. But if you are going to be reaching out to some sort of audience that you don't already have a relationship with, you're going to want to tell us what makes you think that that it will succeed. So you can talk about relationships that you have, you can talk about targeted outreach, have that plan in place rather than just saying, I'm going to talk to so and so. Like, actually tell us what your steps are. If it's an audience that you're already engaged with, if you are a teacher, and it's going to be your class or students, that's fairly straightforward. Or, if you're a neighborhood association president and it's gonna be your neighbors, whatever it is, whatever your audience is. So there's sort of two ways to go about it there. Um, I certainly don't think I don't think that education doesn't need to be limited to students. Anyone and everyone is a student as far as Bay Mini Grant education goes. So, if you're a realtor and you want to educate your clients about Florida-friendly landscaping and what stormwater retention looks like, that kind of thing, that is a form of education too. So you can really get creative with that engaging education piece. I hope that answers your question, Eric. Okay, cool. I'll give a few minutes of golden silence for any other questions. Thank you for the cat, Eric. Much appreciated.
He's been supervising.
Great. He's done. Okay. Well, I'm gonna end the recording. I did offer to stay after a few minutes for like project specific questions, or if you want to brainstorm on anything, feel free to stay on. Otherwise, thank you so much for coming. I am really looking forward to your applications and hopefully working with y'all in 2026. And I'll talk to y'all later.